Hi, everyone. I'm Rich Leimsider. I'm the director of the AI for Nonprofits Sprint, and I am excited to join you today to share another video use case, an example of how staff at your nonprofit can find affordable, off-the-shelf artificial intelligence to make life easier and to help you achieve your mission. Today, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, finding funding. A couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine shared with me a grant opportunity. The challenge was that the letter of inquiry, the first step in applying for funding, was due that same day. I heard from my friend in the late afternoon, and the grant opportunity closed out just a couple hours later. I took a quick look. It seemed like it was a fit for our project here using AI to support nonprofits, but they needed three 200-word short answer essays to be submitted in very short order. And I had other things to do that day. So I immediately went over to ChatGPT, to my fake colleague, in this case, my fake colleague in our development department, in fact, my only colleague in our development department, to help me write this proposal. And I started by framing the issue the way I would for a real colleague, someone who has a lot of skill, good writing ability, but doesn't have a ton of context about what I needed from them. So I wrote, "Hi, I run the sprint. I need your help writing an LOI. I'm going to share some background and then ask you for specific help. Okay?" So just trying to walk this fake person through each step one at a time. So the first thing I did is I uploaded just the PowerPoint slides for the training we do on AI. And then I uploaded a two-page overview for our AI Sprint project. This is just basics. It's not particularly relevant to the grant proposal, but it's giving it context and background about what we do here so that it can then write the grant proposal later. I said, "Here's the background. Do you have any questions?" Just like I would say to a real person, asking it if it has any questions. It read those documents in about 10 seconds, made a nice quick summary, and then started to ask the sorts of reasonable questions that a real colleague might ask. How much are you looking for? Do you want to highlight anything in particular? In fact, rather than answer those questions, I really wanted to share the written guidelines from the funder. There was a document on how to respond to this letter of inquiry. So I uploaded that here. So first it knows about us as an organization. Now it knows about this grant opportunity. And I gave it some more context. I said, these folks don't actually know anything about us. This wasn't a friend. This wasn't an invited proposal. So I said, we're going to need to give them background, and we're going to have to be impressive and inspiring. I said, also, the current background, the information I gave you about our programming, just covers what we do right now, which I'm calling phase one. But for this letter of inquiry, I basically want you to invent the idea of a phase two for our program, something that might run next year. Now, this is not mentioned anywhere in the documents I've uploaded. In fact, it's not mentioned anywhere at all. I'm creating this idea of a new phase for our project right here for the first time. But I outline, okay, phase two will be the same as phase one, but bigger. Instead of working with 100 nonprofits, we'll work with 500. Instead of working with 5,000 staff, we'll work with 25,000 staff. And again, checking in with my fake colleague. Does this make sense to you? Okay, yes, this makes complete sense, it says. Summarizes what I'm trying to do. And then it reads the letter of inquiry requirements. It says, okay, this is what I'm understanding it needs us to submit. 200-word project summary, impact statement, track record statement. Summarizes all the key details, and let's move forward. And it says, do you want me to now draft the sections? Yes, I sure do. I want you to draft them in order, but let's do it one at a time so I can give you feedback. And I made up a nice big round number. Let's go apply for $450,000. Online, that was sort of the limit for how much this grant opportunity will consider. And it says, actually, I don't have any more questions. I know everything I need to know. Let's get going. And I said, good, let's start with that first session. And here's the first draft. It writes the 200-word summary. It keeps it to the 200-word limit. It highlights exactly the sorts of things I would want to highlight. The AI for Nonprofit Sprint is a groundbreaking initiative. This is why we care about it. This is why we're asking for $450,000 in funding. Turns out this was completely perfect for me. Was it exactly the way I would have written it? No, not at all. But Who cares? It was well written, it was strong, and it was certainly good enough for a grant proposal that I had to submit in a matter of minutes. So I said, great, I love it. Feel free to be repetitive, but I want you to go deeper when you do this 200-word impact statement. So now I tried to write this second part of the grant proposal, what they were looking for as an impact statement. And it gave some kind of general principles about how we might have impact on the world. We're going to expand a proven model. We're going to bring education to lots more people, those who serve millions. And it says, how does that sound? Well, I got to be honest, I did not love this second section. But remember, this is not like Google where you ask for something and you either get the right answer or the wrong answer and you move on. This is working with a fake colleague. And when a colleague gives you something that isn't good enough, you get to give feedback. You get to ask for a do-over. So I said, nice try, but it's not right. First of all, it's too repetitive with the first essay that you wrote. And second of all, I don't think you're actually giving them what they want. So I decided here in this case, I needed to walk my fake colleague through the assignment a little more carefully. So I re-uploaded the document that explains how to write this letter of inquiry, and I asked it to walk me through what they're looking for. So it gave me a written outline of the instructions, and it's really specifically understanding now what this funder is looking for. And by doing this, by making it write it out, I basically put into the short-term memory of ChatGPT, of my fake colleague, a clearer understanding of how they should be writing these things. And actually summarize what they're looking for, what it means for the letter of inquiry. And then I said, great. Now, before you go write that second essay, because remember, I liked the first one, we got stuck on the second one. I actually did something maybe I should have done in the first case, which I certainly would do with a colleague. What questions do you have for me about the project we're running so that I can give you specific answers that you will plug into that essay? Imagine the colleague is sitting at your desk and saying, okay, I'm going to go write this thing for you, boss, but I just do need to know a couple of things that are only in your head that I can't generate from scratch. That's a perfectly reasonable thing for a colleague to get stuck with. Well, my fake colleague has some questions. How are you going to measure success? What will your quantifiable outcomes be? Quantifiable outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. Scalability, how will you activate stakeholders? It found these kind of key words and phrases, things that the funder is looking for, and it realized that the proposal would be stronger if it actually had some information about these things. And I answered it. Here's how we're going to use the data. Here's the scale. I actually said, you know what, we don't really do that, so you're going to have to fudge around that piece. And then I say, now, based on the fact that you have a much better understanding of what the funder is looking for, and the fact that I gave you more details, please go write that 200-word essay again. Now, remember, all this back and forth took about 3 additional minutes. So this was not the same as having a human colleague go off, spend an hour, write the second question, come back to me or find time when I was free later in the day, have the conversation. This was a matter of a few minutes. And now I get a second draft of that impact statement, the 200 words, much, much more focused, much more numerical, giving specific data, and identifying what we're going to try to get done. This was actually good enough for me. So again, I'm ready to move on to question 3. I give questions. I say it's okay to be a little more repetitive, but now we have to do the third question, which is about what's your track record and why should they fund us for this work? I wanted to remind it that it probably needs access to my own bio and resume. Because I've done so much work with ChatGPT over time, I actually have uploaded my own bio and resume into its guts into my account, which is something that any of you can do. If you go up into the upper right-hand corner of your ChatGPT account, or there's similar features in most of the other AI programs, if you go down to customize ChatGPT, you can actually upload your own documents and information that you do want it to remember each time. So in my case, I've uploaded my bio to ChatGPT so I don't have to remind it who I am every time we do work together. And it does remember. It says, yes, I have access to your bio. And now it writes the third essay. This is who it's led by. This is what we've done so far. We're a recognized project. This is why you should give us the funding for this grant. That was all I needed. I opened up the website of the grant proposal. I pasted those 3 essays in, put in the other, contact information and other things that grants usually need, and I submitted it. So I told ChatGPT that I submitted it and had fingers crossed. It gave me a really nice supportive feedback. And I hope you all have your fingers crossed as well. It'll be great to get some more funding for this project. But in any case, a wonderful example, a use case of how AI can help in the pursuit of funds for our nonprofit missions. Thanks.